Good morning and Happy New Year to all of you. Hope you're doing well. I have a New Year's Day word for us today, but it's not a Vision Day message. And here's why. Simple explanation. As it turns out, the God of the universe, the God that spoke light into existence, did not fit into my tidy little schedule in the way that I put things together. And I tried to express to God how important it was that we fit according to my schedule, but he didn't place much stock in that. Matter of fact, I think I heard a little chuckle there when God was speaking. Anyway, God is sorting some things out inside of me for 2023, but it's still being sorted out. All the pieces are not in place yet. He's still bringing some definition to it. So I'm not going to just presume and barge ahead because it's New Year's Day and it's supposed to be Vision Message Day and all that kind of stuff. That will come. Just know that there's some shifts coming on the horizon that are pretty exciting, and I'll bring more definition to that in the days ahead, very, very soon, I'm sure. Okay, today. Back in 1995, the Cleveland Browns football team moved out of the city of Cleveland. They'd been there for 30 years, and it was a sudden move. There was just not much warning given to it at all. And this sudden move devastated the people of the city of Cleveland. And a few years later, they did end up getting another team there, but they didn't know that at the time. So this move devastated the fans there. I mean, they lost their NFL team. And among the Browns fans that were interviewed, there was one guy that just sat there and wept. But listen to what he said. Listen to what he said. Now me and my family will have no place to go on Sunday. Now me and my family will have no place to go on Sunday. Now listen, I understand this. For the vast majority of Americans, church is just not even on their radar. It's not a part of their life. Maybe it's never been a part of their life. Now the trend in America has been moving away from church involvement at an alarming rate for decades, actually. Our society is now largely secular. Now, if you were here a few weeks ago, I was sharing about this thought, and I shared that for the first time in American history, those that have a secular viewpoint now outnumber those with a Judeo-Christian worldview in every zip code in America. In every zip, it's the first time ever that's happened. Does that mean that it's hopeless? No. Not at all, not even remotely. It's the opposite. The church of Jesus is still the hope of the world. It still is. It's going to take some tweaking to adapt to our new reality. I understand that, and we all need to understand that. And there is one thing that we do know, and it's this. The future looks nothing like the past that we've experienced. It's a new world. It's a new world. And God is stirring some changes in us and how we relate to the world around us. Because our call as believers is not just to survive it, but to thrive and become more effective than ever before. I just don't think that we should settle for anything less than God's best. I think we should be stubborn about that. I mean, yes, the people around us see God and church as very distant themes, but we don't give up on them because God never gives up on them. I mean, I was far from God at one point. Maybe you were too. But we here today, this is the community of faith here, the Jesus people, those for whom Christianity is central. It's a regular part of our lives. And this is the community that I want to talk about in the next few minutes in this real brief but important message. Okay. Would we all agree that just sometimes the process of getting to church on Sunday can be a battle? I mean, has anybody ever gotten frustrated on a Sunday morning getting ready for church? Has there ever been any stress between family members about promptness or getting into the car on time? Ever? Okay, for just a few minutes this morning, let's think about this gathering not just as one of the places that you have to get to this week, like it's one more place on your list of many, many places that you are going to go to for the course of your week. That's wrong thinking, and I'll tell you exactly why. What we call getting to church is really something very other than that. It's not an obligation. It is an opportunity to enter into a prime environment for God to move, for God to encourage, for God to challenge, for God to prompt you, for God to speak to you, to bring about the life change that almost all of us really, really desperately desire. Now, the enemy, our enemy, fights tooth and nail over this, perhaps more so than any other area of your life. So, I mean, think about it. I don't have any battles getting to the golf course. I don't have a battle getting to a restaurant or to a meeting or to Publix, and you would probably say the same thing. But when it comes to the gathering of the spiritual family, everything in your life becomes an obstacle all of a sudden. Everything in your life rises up to challenge what's most important. I mean, all of a sudden, it's fuzzy and unclear why we should prioritize the gathering of the people of God. And that's, of course, when invitations come to do something else. It's when opportunities come. It's when free tickets come, when family comes to visit. Old friends are in town. When? On Sunday. Always on Sunday. Why are we surprised? Why should this shock us? Why should it ever catch us off guard? The honest truth is we should just recognize that each family or each person is in a silent war just to get here. And sometimes not so silent at all. Just kind of silent in that we don't talk to other people or to other families about it. We just kind of pretend everything's just fine. No, we're perfect. When we're on the way to church, we just all recite the latest verses that we've memorized, and we sing I love you with the love of the Lord to each other in the car on the way here. If that's not you, listen, when a person or a family determines that they're going to get here to church, when they engage through all opposition to the point of not giving up, even if it means getting there late, we should celebrate them. You won a battle to get here. So let's not make assumptions that anybody who's late is only late because they're lazy or because they lingered at Dunkin' Donuts or Starbucks or something like that. Let's all make different assumptions for this year, okay? Make different assumptions. Let's all assume that a victory was won in just getting here. You're here. You made it. Give yourself a hand. Give yourself a hand. Matter of fact, give each other $20 for making it, okay? Now, I want to get a little deeper into this. I want us to read this verse that comes from John chapter 10 out loud, if we can. Let's read this out loud together. You ready? The thief comes only to steal and kill and destroy, but I have come that they may have life and have it to the full. Okay, you ever wonder why Jesus married those two statements? I mean, he basically says them in the same breath. I mean, he has his reasons. Life is what God intends for you, by all means. But right now, that life is opposed. It's opposed. It doesn't just roll in on a silver tray for you to pick up at your convenience. There is a thief, Jesus tells us. There's a thief, and he comes to steal and kill and destroy. Why don't we face this? I mean, so few of us actually face this head on. The offer is life, but you're going to have to fight for it because there's an enemy in your life that has very, very different agenda. There's something set against us. We are at war. I don't like that any more than you do. But the sooner we come to terms with it, the better off we'll be, and the sooner we'll move into the life that we really want. Because this is not the Garden of Eden. This is not Mayberry. This is not the Brady Bunch. And I think we all probably understand that. The world in which we live is a combat zone, and it's a violent clash of kingdoms. Think about in the Old Testament, the Israelites had to fight to get to the promised land. They had to fight to get into the promised land, and once they got in, they had to fight to clear the enemies. David, the king, had to fight to secure his throne, and then further on, he had to fight to keep it. God has long fought for the relationship that he wants with you and with me. Now, the good news is you don't have to be afraid of the battle. The battle can be won, and it will call forth incredible things from you. Things like sacrifice and courage and love. But make no mistake, it is a fight. Maybe you haven't heard that all day long. Sorry if I'm the first person to have to tell you this, but this is just the truth. Great author by the name of John Eldredge put it this way. Listen to these words. He said, "You were born into a world at war, and you will live all your days in the midst of a great battle, involving all the forces of heaven and hell and played out here on earth." Where did you think all this opposition was coming from? I mean, this is a pretty stark dose of spiritual reality. I know that. But there's good news in the midst of it all, because Jesus looked at his followers. He looked in their eyes before he left this earth, and listen to what he said to them. In Luke chapter 10, he said, "Understand that I have imparted to you my authority to trample over his kingdom," meaning the enemy, Satan's kingdom, "upon every demon before you and overcome every power Satan possesses." Yes, there is opposition. Yes, we need to be aware and we need to be alert. But don't ever forget that the very authority of Jesus has been given to you and to me. Now, you've heard this statement. I know you have. Life is a journey. Say that with me. Life is a journey. We've all heard that. The actual truth is, life is both a journey and a battle. I heard somebody say, we were made for a fight. And if we don't engage in this great spiritual fight, we will find ourselves fighting much lesser battles. Insignificant, inconsequential battles. You're called for the big battle. This world is not our true home. Now, it seems like it is, especially for us Americans, because our days here are much, much longer than in other underdeveloped parts of the world. I mean, if you live in an under-resourced nation of the world, like in Central Africa, where the average lifespan for a man is 51, and young children die from treatable diseases with regularity, when you understand that, then you appreciate this temporary home truth that I'm talking about. And those folks actually see the world with more reality than those of us fortunate ones who are scrubbed and educated. They've got the better perspective, the more realistic perspective, while we can actually be kind of deluded in our minds because it's so comfortable here. So I'll say it again. Life is both a journey and a battle. That's the truest explanation for what it is that we experience around here. The only way to really understand our life. Our life is really a whole lot more than just striving for whatever pleasures please us. Like, I really want to get this car, I really want to get this house, these hobbies, these games, and then we just put up with whatever inconveniences come along the way. And then, of course, maybe squeezing in a few thoughts about God and his church and his kingdom, if we can find some space. Life is a desperate quest through dangerous country to a destination that is beyond our wildest hopes and indescribably good. And I'm not just talking about heaven. I'm talking about what the life that that he offers us in this world now. The kingdom of God begins now when you begin a relationship with Jesus. You can live the kingdom life right here on earth. Truth is, different roads lead to different places. You may live your life in one way, another way, another way. Different roads lead to different places. But I want to tell you this. To find the land of spiritual victory and life, you must take the journey with your eyes wide open. Wide open. You can't get there by any other means. Your enemy will make sure of it. I mean, there is a battle, and if you're not fighting, you're losing. I mean, we just can't afford to ignorantly sleep through it unaware, just taking whatever comes towards us. The good news is that we can and we will find that land of victory and life. God's word tells us that. There's a great verse in 1 John chapter 4 that says, "Greater is he that is in you, greater is he that's in you than he that's in the world." Greater. Greater. He wins. He wins. And we win if we are fully his. That's what God wants for us. Okay, just shift gears for a minute here. I'm going to bring your attention to just a couple of great verses that come in the book of Hebrews in the New Testament. Chapter 10, look at these words. "Let us not neglect our church meetings, as some people do, but encourage and warn each other, especially now that the day of his coming back again is drawing near." So the phrase there I want to focus in on, let us not neglect our church meetings. They're great words, and we kind of know that already. We also kind of know that if we're honest, we'll admit it, that we do sort of neglect it from time to time. We're tired, or we're distracted, or we schedule some other stuff, and we still kind of feel bad about that, but let's just put all that aside for just a minute, okay? Put all that obligation, all that nonsense aside. We gather here on Sundays as Life Church, and we're very used to the freedom that we experience to come and worship God in the way that we do. And some of the big questions that we will wrestle through as we approach a Sunday are questions like, where will we go for lunch? Who will go with us? Are the pews in that old chapel still really hard? What songs will they sing? Will it be too hot? Will it be too cold? Will they have coffee for me? So many church-related questions. But as we know, and we forget a lot, but as we know, our brothers and sister Christians in other parts of the world don't really wrestle through the same set of questions that we wrestle through on a Sunday morning. Their questions are more like, will we be arrested or shot if we go to church? Will my friends be arrested or shot if they show up at church? I wonder if anybody has scored any new pages of a Bible that we can maybe gather together around and read, or maybe copy down a couple of pages so we can get a load of this New Testament that we've heard so much about. I wonder if Pastor got out of jail, or did they shoot him? So many church-related questions, just different questions than the ones we wrestle with. Now, in many real-life parts of our world, if they gather like this and they get caught, they will be arrested. So those international followers of Jesus have a much different day-to-day experience than we do. Some are beaten, some are killed. Why do they do it? They don't even have coffee and pastries there. How does anyone even bother to show up for the gathering of believers in places like that? We just don't think about this very much, but there's more persecution of Christians going on in our world right now than ever before in history. It's not a thing of the past. It's a very real in our day, and it's very sobering. So the Bible tells us that we're to gather together regularly, even if it's dangerous, even if people threaten you. And so these real live Christians, just like us, but in different parts of the world, often have to meet in secret. The only way to do it and survive is to gather your family in the middle of the night, maybe walk miles in the cold and in the darkness, and find the secret meeting place and worship quietly. Sometimes they even have to worship silently. Sometimes in the worship portion, they mouth the words of worship songs, lest they be too loud and get caught and killed. Point is, they do whatever it takes. They do whatever it takes to prioritize the gathering of believers. They see the incredible importance and the life-changing power of God at work through his community of people. At the risk of their lives, they don't miss this. They're not superhumans. They're not super Christians. They're ordinary people just like you and me. But the reality of God's presence and power to impact their lives is ever present for them. Their perspective of the gathering of believers is a little different than ours. It's first. It's first and foremost. And they may not have the desirable options that we have. I know that. I get that. I get it. Again, the questions we wrestle with. Well, it's Sunday. The beach is calling. It's Sunday. Golf is calling. Or the lake is calling. Or it's been a crazy week and I just cannot even. Some friends asked me to brunch, but I don't have the nerve to ask them to go to church before brunch, so. Or I just would prefer to worship privately on my own. That way I can make sure it's exactly the way that I like it. Or I'd come, but I got friends coming over for the big game and I got to get ready for that. We're all adults. I get that. We make our own decisions. But don't kid yourself and think that that doesn't subtly affect your perspective over the course of time, because it does. It does. So what do we do? What do we do with that reality? When we're willing to face that, what do we do? We all have our own level of struggle with this, and it's all a little bit different. But listen, the answer is actually the same for all of us. It's just simply to hold this up before God honestly, submit it to God honestly. Not under condemnation, not even under obligation, just honestly. A prayer like this: Lord, what is your way for me on this? What's your way on this? I don't want to be driven by obligation or tradition or any of these other things, anything but your will. So help me to navigate the way that you want for me. Help me to lead my life. Help me to lead my family. I really do want to hear from you, Lord. So I want to have your perspective when it comes to the community of faith that you've placed me in. So where I'm off, correct me. Where I've got it right, affirm me. I want your voice, your will. That's what matters to me. Your voice and your will, not my feelings, not my current level of commitment or my past level of commitment or any of those things. You're first, Lord. So I'm asking you to speak to me. Now, friends, when you pray that prayer honestly, it will bring you to God's best for your life. Wherever you live, whatever part of the world you live, Orlando or Nairobi or Shanghai or some remote foreign place like Kissimmee, any place. Just an honest prayer. Lord, you are first in my life. Speak, Lord, and I will obey. Do you have the gall to pray that prayer? Speak, Lord, and I will obey. It's the beginning of new life when you'll be that honest with God. Lord, I just hold it up before you. Speak. I look, like Brian was saying earlier, I'm looking forward to hearing from you, and I believe that you're going to speak to me. When you do that, it'll change your life.